The Edinburgh Fringe starts this week, so I'm going to read you a story I could have given more thought to. Hi, this is Half-Baked Tales, where I write and read one halfway thought-through short story every week. They are not always good, and that's the point. Last week, I delivered a second draft of a fantasy story I've been working on. We met Agatha, a retired hero in a fantasy world who is confronted with a long-anticipated and highly unwanted quest. If you missed it, go back and listen to last week's podcast, The Legacy's Keeper. This week's story is part 2 of Half-Baked Tale number 36, so I will give you a short summary before plunging in. Karin, an eclectic office worker, spices up a work conference by stealthily dropping various condiments into her workers' coffee, tea, soup, etc. Nobody notices her, except Ricky. Karin is based off the character I'm playing in the Edinburgh Fringe show We Are All Florida Man, playing 24th to 29th August at The Space on Niddry Street. So let's see what Karin and Ricky are up to. Here is Half-Baked Tale number 40, Squirrely Girl, Part 2. His name was Ricky, and he was as bland as a banana. He'd observed the entirety of Karin's condiment rampage and thought it was the most outlandish thing he'd ever witnessed. A grown woman secretly plopping pots of ketchup into unsuspecting co-workers' coffee cups should be immediately reported to management. The company's employee handbook might not have covered this exact situation, but it surely would fall under gross misconduct. Ricky had a responsibility to act for the sake of his co-workers, for the sake of the company. He approached Karin, who was eyeing him suspiciously while the chaos of her prank erupted around them. He moved slowly, no sudden movements, wary of the wild flicker in Karin's eyes. He just needed to convince her he meant no harm. Then he could close the distance, cage the beast, so to speak. "Well," he said, testing the waters, "that certainly livened things up." Ricky did not miss the slight lift of Karin's brow or the glimpse of hope that brightened her eyes. He risked another step closer. "Let's slip out this way." He nodded to the emergency exit behind her. Her shoulders stiffened, and she turned herself towards the still chaotic room full of office workers fighting and disposing of soggy condiment pots. Wrong move, Ricky thought. This woman values the work it takes to create her chaos and enjoys relishing in it. He could work with that. "You've got to tell me how you did it, please," he implored, and Karin's face broke into a wickedly bright smile. 1 month later. Karin's room in Ricky's house had a full-length mirror. It was the first thing he'd bought for her, already erected in the corner of the small room when she arrived, bags in hand, just a few days ago. The twin bed was due to arrive tomorrow. Karin had been sleeping on an air mattress all week. Ricky had insisted the need for a mirror outweighed the need for a bed. "I've gone through all the trouble of buying you a whole new wardrobe," he'd said. "Don't you want to see yourself?" Truth be told, Karin had never bothered much with mirrors. She moved too quickly to stand still for so long. But this past month with Ricky had introduced her to a side of life she'd never experienced before. Never had someone listened to her speak so candidly about her interests in human reactions, the fun she felt when her heart raced, and how exciting it was to witness the emotions people tried so hard to keep private. Her parents, teachers, peers, none of them understood. None of them ever tried. It always fell on her to adapt to what they deemed as appropriate behavior. Yet here came this man, containing as much zest as a banana, who listened to every hijink Karin could think of. He pulled them out of her. He always wanted to hear more. He introduced her to a slice of life she never thought possible. So if Ricky wanted her to wear a pink dress that dug into her arms, with frills that tickled her neck, she'd wear it, goddammit. There was a knock on her door, followed immediately by the turning of the handle. Karin met Ricky's eyes in the reflection of the mirror. He never smiles very widely. In the month since they've met, Karin has learned to seek his approval by the slight movements of his cheeks and small nods of his head. The dress met his expectations. "You look ready. Go wait in the car. I need to make a quick call," he told her. Karin's stomach was bubbling with nerves. Ricky was taking her to his church today for some big event. This would be the first time he introduced Karin to the parish, and he was very excited. Karin was not religious and had not enjoyed Mass the handful of times her parents had forced her to attend. She hated the monotony of the priest's speeches, diluting the otherworldly stories into dull life lessons while everyone sat stock still on wooden benches. As a kid, Karin had never made it through an entire Sunday without an embarrassing outburst, forcing her parents to shuffle her quickly outside. Now she thought about how her dad would react when he heard that she not only had a boyfriend he'd approved of, but that she'd made a good impression at his church. Because she would be making a good impression, she was hell-bent on it. For Ricky. For the new life he was introducing her to. She could change herself for that. A large banner was draped across the church doors, propped wide open for the incoming parishioners. It had the words, "Invitation Sunday," written in slanted font against a blue background. Karin had paused below it, waiting for Ricky, who had stepped away to speak with a group of men. The interior of the church was as cavernous, dark, and suffocating as she remembered. She took a deep breath of fresh, non-churchy air before crossing the threshold. Her eyes adjusted quickly to the darkness inside, and she got a closer look at the parishioners. So many of them looked identical to Ricky. A plain button-up shirt, clean slacks, a neat haircut. She felt glued to the ground as her eyes flicked from person to person, searching for any recognizable sign of Ricky. How had she never identified something that set him apart? Even his hair color had a chameleon effect, shifting between brown and dirty blonde. She felt untethered, sweat gathering in her armpits, and she worried that it would destroy the dress Ricky had picked. Then a pair of eyes caught her, and she felt tethered again. Ricky was across the room looking at her, as was the group he was with, their uncanny, identical faces, craning their necks, peering over one another to get a glimpse of her, with Ricky at the center, beckoning her forward. That was Half-Baked Tale number 40, Squirrely Girl Part 2, a continuation of Half-Baked Tale number 36. This story is based on the character I'm playing, Karin, in Blue McElroy's Edinburgh Fringe theater production, We Are All Florida Man. Here's a quote describing the show from the listing on the Edinburgh Fringe website. A modern myth born from real headlines. A term for the bizarre, chaotic, and utterly unbelievable stories that come out of Florida. An absurdist comedy set inside a support group for these infamous characters. We Are All Florida Man is playing 24th to 29th August at the Space on Nidri Street. It is bonkers hysterical and well worth the trip. I wrote Squirrely Girl Part 1 when I was in rehearsals at the beginning of July. My creative brain was really full up of developing my interpretation of Karin, so I figured putting Half-Baked Tales to use in developing her backstory would not only be fun, but also useful, and it very much was. The detailed backstory sets me up at a perfect jumping off spot at the top of the show. I can revisit and ground myself in this journey Karin goes through, and then play through the events on stage with ease and exploration. As people, we are the sum of our experiences, our choices, our opinions, etc. And that summation dictates how we move through the world. If any elements of that summation were changed, then we'd interact with the world in an entirely different way. As an actor, having complete, detailed clarity on who your character is, what they've been through, the mistakes they've made, and the goals that they've accomplished gives you the jumping off point to exist in the circumstances of the script. If I created a different background, a whole different story for Karin, then the performance of the script would also be entirely different. Sure, the lines would be the same, but the person on stage experiencing them would have different motivations, different opinions, a whole different journey. All that rambling on acting is just to say, writing the story was very important and very helpful. I did some weird research for Squirrely Girl Part 2. I wrote most of it in a cafe sitting next to two men who loved Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. I did not agree with their take. They were sat only a table away from me, and I was nervous that they'd be able to read what was on my screen. That makes it sound like it was something really bad, and it wasn't. It's just not the person that I am. I was researching evangelical Bring a Friend to Mass days. I was reading through a church website detailing step-by-step guidance on how to organize your own Bring a Friend Day. And that's when I realized that if someone read over my shoulder at that moment, then they would think that I was actually trying to organize a Bring a Friend to Mass Day. That would be the obvious conclusion, and there's nothing wrong with being perceived as someone who would do that. It's just so jarringly out of character for myself that I felt really strange about it. That website wasn't very helpful anyway. A lot of the practical advice was to pray for new people to attend. Prayer is necessary to many faiths and is a beautiful personal practice, but I don't think it'll help much with event management. That might be offensive, but if I have enough of an audience to offend someone, then I take that as a win. I did learn from my research that these Bring a Friend days are based on the parable of the Great Banquet. This parable tells of this great rich man who is throwing a big banquet, but none of the rich and powerful people he invited show up. They've all got excuses of other things that they need to do. They can't come to the banquet. So he invites all kinds of people from the city, the poor, the sick, all of the outcasts who weren't initially invited. But still there's room for more guests, and he wants his house to be full. So he sends his servants out to the street to get anyone from anywhere to come to his party so it's entirely full. The story is meant to be about how God, Christian God's salvation is available to everyone, not just the very rich and the powerful who may take his love for granted. But the bit of the story that I get stuck on is the rich man only invited the outcast peoples because he was slighted by his initial guests, and he wanted to show them how great of a party he had. It wasn't to welcome the poor and downtrodden, it was revenge. That's Ricky, too. He hasn't pulled Karin from her outlandish ways to invite her as she is into his life. He's got ulterior motives that benefit him and him alone. Realized I didn't really get to that bit in the story, and I super realized that reading it out. I was like, wow, there's so much more of this in my own head. I found it actually really hard to write under the constraints of an already established storyline. I know where I need to end up in terms of Karin in the show, and I've always got my actor brain yelling about character motivation. For a character you're playing, you always want to pick the strongest choice for their journey, the one that makes it most interesting to play through, that creates tangible conflict for the audience to experience alongside you. And those choices don't always make for a good, cohesive written narrative. So we got a very strange, kind of short addition to Squirrely Girl Part 1. And we'll see if I revisit this, because I might just, it's done its part for me, and I might just let it sit here. Because I find it a lot more fun when I have just no restraints on the imagination and can just write whatever shit I want. If you enjoy these stories and my chat, please like, comment, follow, or review on whatever platform you listen on. Half-Baked Tales is currently available on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And in this early stage, the goal is to reach new people and find my audience. Engaging with the podcast helps other people see it, but better than manipulating the algorithm is word of mouth recommendation. If you know someone who loves a short story, needs to do some more reading, or just loves a bit of casual imagination, send them my way. As ever, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.